Welcome to After the Show, your weekly movie podcast brought to you by A. Scully and Sid Talk. We're addicted to movies. Are you? Hello, everybody. Welcome to After the Show. Hello, Sid Talk. How are you?
Well, you're very chipper. I'm well, thank you.
I'm chipper, ready to go. Hot. I'm a bit hot, but that's irrelevant.
You mean like hot? Or do you mean like, whew, I'm hot?
Like hotter than hell, like the Kiss song.
Yeah, but is that hot like hot?
It could be either.
Or like, ooh, I'm feeling sexy hot?
Either.
Okay.
All right. What was the before the after the show discussion?
A little bit about this movie.
Oh, yeah, we were discussing the Oscars and some diversity rules that have just come in, and it was...
It's an interesting world we live in.
Just look that up and discuss with somebody, because it's very interesting. 2024 rules.
It's hard to get my head around some things like that, but I got to read it all. Read more about it.
You can read the whole document. They published it. So let's get on with the podcast. It's Saturday, June the 17th. This is After the Show, your weekly movie review podcast with your awesome hosts, A. Scully and Sid Talk.
Charming and witty as ever.
Witty and hot. Yes. Episode this week is 792. The movie we're looking at is A Good Person. It's a 2023 movie. You can get it on Blu-ray and streaming right now. It's rated R from our friends at Warner Brothers, who gave us a copy for review. Let's have Sid Talk's synopsis of the movie, A Good Person.
Before I do that, because I may not be a good person, I have to say, something in my brain from childhood or something, when you say, we are on podcast number 792. I feel like that's wrong, but I don't know why.
The 792nd podcast?
No, I should be like, I don't know why. So someone can tell me. It isn't
wrong.
But I won't communicate with anyone. That there is a time and place to use the and in the number. Like, so someone knows that, communicate with him, not with me.
It's clear I'm right.
I mean, we are on the 792nd. Yes. And it's 792 or 792, but I don't know why I have a thing in my head about and stuck in a big number.
Irrelevant.
I'll look it up. The synopsis for this movie is nothing to do with math. It's just about a lot of people who've done bad things, and we are confronting all of that very modernly. Like, confront the shittiest thing you've done and the truth about the shitty things you've done. And then, yes, everyone, you're not going to love it, but move on. Keep moving, maybe is a better phrase, but that's what it's about, really.
I'll give you the one off the box.
That's not it? I thought I was pretty close this time.
I'm going to read the whole thing off the box. Daniel, Oscar winner Morgan Freeman, $1 Million Baby, is brought together with Allison, Oscar nominee Florence Pugh, Little Women, a once thriving young woman with a bright future who was involved in an unimaginable tragedy that took his daughter's life. As grief-stricken Daniel navigates raising his teenage granddaughter and Allison seeks redemption, the two discover their friendship, forgiveness, and hope can flourish in the most unlikely places.
That's a synopsis? That sounds like someone's layout for a trailer. That's a lot. That's like someone went to the studio and said, I have a story idea. Here it is. That was like...
Yeah, the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Yes. So, A Good Person, the new movie from director Zack Braff. He wrote and directed it. Sid Talk, what did you think?
I cried a lot.
A lot. I was emotionally unhappy a lot of the time.
Unhappy or like... It's prickly. It's confronting. That's why it's so upsetting. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love that. It kind of
makes you feel like a wreck at the end of it.
It makes you feel like a wreck. It's not as much of a wreck as Magnolia. Let's be honest. No. That one's just depressing. This one's like sadness of reality. That's what gets me. So we're going to tell you the story is the box said. A young woman who was engaged to a young man. She's driving the car. She looks at her phone. She wrecks the car. His sister and her husband both die, leaving a teenage daughter behind. From there, basically, she tumbles downward because obviously when you've done something bad and you know it and something bad happens to other people, I do believe in the thing where you, inside your brain somewhere, you are no longer entitled to have a life.
Yes.
Right? You're no longer entitled to be happy. You should never get over it. You should never move on. You should wallow in sadness and beg forgiveness constantly for the rest of your life. Now, depending on the thing you did, depending on the circumstance in real life, I don't know how you apply that. But in this, it's very clear she didn't intend to harm anyone. She doesn't sound like a great, I'm being judgmental here. What we find out is that her job before this wreck is that she sort of coerces and manipulates doctors into prescribing a particular drug. It's Humira, which is like funny. I mean, we've all seen the commercials, right?
Yeah.
They even mention it by name, which is funny. But
what does that one do?
It says it's like for psoriasis and dry skin.
Oh, yeah,
Humira.
she mentioned that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's her job. And she sort of relishes it because she says she flirts with the doctors and then they write more prescriptions and she gets big bonuses and stuff. Even her fiance mentions it, like, well, we're going to hell for this. Like, it's a bad thing. So we already know that she's...
Hence the movie being called A Good Person.
Right.
It should have a question mark, really.
And then she looks at her phone while she's driving, which, yes, everyone who does it can say, well, I've done it. But if something bad happens, because the person looked at their phone, we will all judge them, right? I mean, that's the thing. The split-second choice you just made killed somebody, right? So in this story... Then she goes in a downward spiral. She starts taking pain medication because she's injured in the accident as well. And it's oxycodone. So, of course, that is controversial because you get hooked on that. And then it's the thing now. It's a historical thing in America, particularly, where then you move on to other opioids and whatnot, right? Opioid crisis or whatever. It's in that world that we're talking about where now she's going to try to seek out anything to keep her mind, as she said, blissfully numb to the reality, basically, of what has happened. And now we're meeting her up at a point where she's kind of at the bottom. The father of the young woman who died is a recovering alcoholic, an older dude, Morgan Freeman. And of course, he was bad when he was younger. And so, but we meet him when he's like a charming grandpa, right? And then we start finding out more truths about his behavior in the past. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I thought he was like Mr. Nice, poor victim grandpa, right? His daughter's dead. He's raising his granddaughter, boo-hoo. But then you find out he was an abusive father to his son.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, I can't like him, can I? But then the granddaughter, who's sort of like, is the sauce on a fancy dish, right? She kind of brings it all together, like makes everyone confront everything, just like right in your face. And I really like that. It kind of is the way I wish people could communicate.
You think people don't?
No. Oh my God.
I mean, somebody probably does.
Nobody I know except me, and nobody wants to listen when you want to point the truth at them. And yeah, sometimes it's from a place of hubris, like, I know better than you all, so I'm going to tell you the truth, right? But I feel like that would be better in life than manipulation, hiding away, running away, pretending things aren't there, just being simply mad and completely rejecting a person for the rest of your life because of a thing. Again, depends on the thing. I'm not saying everything everybody does can be overlooked forever. Just like, hey, let's all sing Kumbaya and all that shit. I'm just saying confronting things feels better to me because I'm confrontational, you see. That's why I kind of like this movie and I like the granddaughter because she just asks questions like a teenage girl would, right? Instead of all the hang-ups. I mean,
she's got nothing to lose.
Exactly. Her parents are dead. She's kind of running a little bit wild, but not too wild, right? So she's all right. But I just really like the idea that you just step up and when someone says question about, so did you know, or whatever, did you know how bad I felt when you killed my parents or whatever the thing is, to not run away from it and just be like, oh, I have to marinate in this now and deal with it.
So you think the title, A Good Person, do you think that's like, what is a good person? Are we all trying to be good people, but then failing or
none of us are? Or
yeah, none of us are.
Yeah, I really like it because I thought about it a lot. the accumulation of your whole life, you have to add it all up like a math equation. And at the end of that, some religions will say, well, that's when it all gets tallied up, right? And someone else gets to decide if you were good. But, or is it just day to day that her gut instinct from the time she gets connected with the grandpa and the granddaughter, her instinct is to want to help the granddaughter. Like her gut tells her.
Yeah, like it's like unnatural, like she just has to do it. It's unnatural.
Exactly. Like she wants to nurture this person. I don't even think it's out of guilt. I think it's just that she sees this teenage girl. She hears that she's struggling. There's going to be some guilt involved, of course, because she's the reason the girl's parents are dead. But is that what makes you a better person? Because she's failing because she's failing her own self, right? With the drugs and everything. But her insides are telling her to lift this young woman up and to make amends with the grandfather and to try to make it better. So it's really tough. See, that's why I like it, because it smashes you in the face with, if you've done terrible things, where do you go from there? What
happened was an accident, in my opinion.
An accident, but caused by her she did a thing that caused it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she was literally like talking to the people in the car. Then they were talking about going to see a play. And then she said she would look it up on a phone.
Right. She's looking at the maps like we all do, like a GPS.
For a split second, and then crashed into a backhoe that was reversing.
Right. But then we have to remember, for the whole year or so, she kept blaming the backhoe driver. It was his fault. It was his fault. He backed in. It was like she couldn't confront the truth.
Yeah.
And then when that penny drops, I feel like that's when it freed her up. It could have crushed her, but instead it sort of like the weight was off her shoulders, and now she can come clean to herself and to everyone. And then whatever happens, happens, right? Either everybody loves me or hates me or whatever. I'm just going to keep going.
As that thing that I don't like much, which I talked about last week in Renfield, support group.
That did.
Trope. But in this movie, I didn't mind it because she needed to vent it all out at some point. She also bumps into Daniel, Morgan Freeman's character, in the support group, which made a big complication going down there.
Exactly. But I really loved it near the end when he said, because she sees him at the AA meeting, right?
Yep.
Was going to be her father-in-law. Well, then she killed his daughter accidentally. And I'll keep saying that because that's the truth. Her actions caused the death of his daughter, right?
Yeah, if it wasn't for her looking at that phone, it wouldn't have happened.
Correct. So he looks at her, and my mind is like, oh God, like, what's he going to say? Well, he instantly like tries to get her to stay, and she's come this far, and he tries to...
Because he's trying to be better.
You think that, but later in the movie, he confesses.
And says
that it's like me competing with God, because I thought God was testing me and he was trying to break me and make me break him down because he's an alcoholic. And I think his mind was like, no, I'm winning this battle. And so he pretended.
Yes.
He was like pretending to like want, to take her in the fold and look like the bigger person. But he was. So there you go. There's another reason, like, oh, is that being a good person? When the end result turned out to be good, right? Because they became like a very interesting new family unit.
And when he was unloading that on her, saying she was a terrible person, and how we actually felt about the whole thing, he actually said, I'm a good person.
Right, he did.
Where I was like, well, you just stepped out of the car. I think you've been drinking.
He wasn't driving, though. The sponsor was driving.
No, but you know what I'm saying. Like, he's turning to the bottle.
That doesn't make you a bad person. He's just talking about what he thinks as his intentions, but he's also not realizing that her intentions are also good.
When he says, I'm a good person, like, that's what he thinks. He also did something terrible in the past, which he isn't really a good person.
Yeah, but is he? See, this is where this is the conversation.
Like, if you're abusive to your son in the past, and then in the future, you're good to your granddaughter, does it equal it out?
I don't think it's about equaling out or balancing it out. It's about acknowledging what you've done, making amends for what you've done. And while I'm not a huge proponent of all the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or other 12-step programs, I do think that confronting the truth about what you've done and then letting the other person that you've hurt or harmed be now in control of where we go. Like, I'm willing now to... I don't know if it's proving yourself or I want you to know how sorry I am. I'm truly whatever, right? And then everybody move forward. So bad actions are bad actions. Does it make us bad? See, that's the thing.
You'll definitely rip you apart, this movie.
I cried the whole time because it's just so her being broken. I didn't, to be honest, I didn't have a lot of sympathy for her.
No, and that's part of the story. It's like,
right.
How do you feel about this? You know?
Not that I didn't have sympathy for her because of the accident, but, you know, she got wrapped up in her own thing and then she's pissed off at her mom because her mom won't get her more prescription drugs. And she's sort of a trope of what we all think of in the movie. They call her a junkie at one point. And that was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, by the way, in the bar.
Yes.
Oh my God. I loved it. She goes to a bar. She has no money, but someone told her that in order to find, you know, like drugs on the sly, prescription drugs, she needs to go down to the bar because there's always somebody there who sells them. 2 dudes that she knew from high school are there, and they are very confronting. That's another one of those confronting scenes. The one guy's like, "You were such a bitch in school," and she's just like, "You acted like you thought you were better than us," and she's like, "I wasn't acting. I was better than you, and I thought that I was whatever." And it kind of tore her down. And he's the first one to make her say that she was a junkie because she wanted to get drugs off of him. But she's like, "I don't have any money." And they're laughing at her like, "Are you kidding me? You're like the snotty girl that looked down on us in high school." I mean, but it wasn't like a mean scene. It sounds like it, but it was actually really like
just confronting her.
Confronting, you know, and while they were enabling her to continue her addiction, it was still a little bit like one more seed to plant in her mind, you know, of maybe what kind of, see, that tells us again, even in high school, which probably was about 10 years prior, right? Yep. That people perceived her as not being a nice person.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I loved it.
So let's get on to the cast. Florence Pugh, Pugh.
Yeah.
Plays Allison. I was saying earlier, Midsommar is one of my favorite films, and it was introduced us to Florence Pugh. And I was like, where the hell did she come from? Because she's amazing. Again, this cements it for me.
I really like how free she seems. You know, she just lets it out there. Whatever it is, whether she, like in the beginning where she's dancing really funny on the bed with her fiance, you know, just like really, really going for it, or the emotional scenes, or even the quiet scenes, like when she's at the table with Morgan Freeman and he asks her a question and she just sort of barely nods her head and takes a breath, and then that's kind of it. I really like the difference, and everything tells the right thing about that character at the time. She's
a very good actress, even in that Harry Styles and her movie, which wasn't a great movie. She was very good. You know what I'm saying? Like I think she's, you know, I think she's a up and comer, or is she already come? I don't know. She's been in a Marvel movie. She's in Dune coming up. I love Dune. So yeah, Florence Pugh, she is the star of this movie. But there's also another person, Morgan Freeman as Daniel. I feel like I haven't seen Morgan Freeman in a movie for a long time.
It does seem like it's been a while.
This was like, oh, Morgan Freeman's in this. And then Morgan Freeman was, I would call him effing amazing in this movie.
It was really good. Yeah.
I think he had everything you can show, like an emotion. He did all of them. Angry, really angry, actually. Broken.
And funny.
Funny. Just like a regular guy who's likable. But he went through every stage of what you could do. And I believed him. I believed everything that came out of him. He's like one of those actors that is, it seems effortless what he's doing.
And sometimes we could all argue that he has sort of fallen into the authority figure, you know.
I mean, he has.
Yeah. But this was like you said, all the different, and you don't end up fully liking him because now you know.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like lovable grandpa, like you said, but then there's so many other areas to him where you're like, yeah, he's got a past. There's some, you know, he's not a good person fully.
Listen to you.
Maybe
not
an
a good
eighth of
person.
him is, but you know, a lot of him isn't.
See, that's the framing of the movie, is that it opens with him and his train set in his basement.
I really love the train set thing.
Right. Well, that's a frame, right? Because then he's created a world where he says, you know, he can make the girl kiss him behind the school and make his little figurines. He has his father greeting him at the train, his own little figurine when he came home from Vietnam. But in reality, he confesses his father wasn't there. He was a drunken at home. And so that's his
getaway.
Right, because he hasn't drank for 10 years. His wife is dead and all that. And so I like that that's sort of the foundation of the idea that we make our own life. And his is just there on that table, maybe, instead of in his life.
You know, with the bicycle, the little bicycle.
Yes, oh my God.
That was where I was like, oh God, I'm gonna go.
Were you? Oh.
Yeah,
and she rode a bike, which is hilarious. So it's not hilarious to her, to the character, because she's afraid to get in a car.
Just afraid to get in a car.
Yeah.
So she rides a BMX around, which reminded me a little bit of Zack Braff's other movie, Garden State, where Natalie Portman's character rode that little moped around with a little helmet.
Yep.
Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Maybe he's obsessed with two-wheel vehicles. We've got Molly Shannon as Diane. What did you think of Molly?
All I think of when I see Molly Shannon is Millie. Millie and Louise, Millie and Louise. Now, if you don't know what that is, then you are not a fan of Bob's Burgers. She plays a character named Millie, who's like a psychotic little girl, and she's hilarious. And so in this, same as you though, too, I think of Year of the Dog. Yep. I also think of Saturday Night Live when she does the Catholic girl character where she superstar and she like puts her arms up in the air like superstar. And in this one, she's the mom, which I was like, oh, maybe she's the older sister at first. And then she starts calling her mama. And I'm like, oh, wow. Molly Shannon's moved into that phase of her career. And I thought she was really convincing because mom also drinks a lot of wine. Yes. And takes prescription medication for anxiety and is kind of unaware of that. She's not like a super enabler, but she's also not judging her daughter. She just wants her daughter to be better.
She is a bit of an enabler, to be fair.
Well, she throws the pills down the drain, right?
Yeah, but then she actually gets her some pills just to keep her there so she's not on her own.
Because she panicked so bad when she went missing for a couple of days. She got her some pills from a lady who got some pills from a doctor.
So again, good person, yes or no?
Oh, good. Oh, right.
We've got Celeste O'Connor as Ryan, and she's the granddaughter.
She was awesome.
Yes.
Seriously, up against a big hitter like Morgan Freeman in a scene, not just because he's good, but he's been doing it for 50 years, 40 years. And here she is talking with her grandpa about birth control and about sex. Yeah. And she's really funny and like really convincing that those two are actually family.
Yeah, I loved it. Is it a dichotomy? Is that right? Of the old and young, the differences?
Juxtaposition?
Yeah. It's really funny in this movie. When she's like, I don't want to talk about sex again. I love
this shit.
Yeah, I love this shit.
He catches her in bed with a 20-year-old young man.
Yes.
And is pissed off and basically almost, at some point, almost kills him. Actually, literally almost kills him. And the point is the girl's like, look, Grandpa, sex is just like a thing for us. It's different than it was for you. And then he has to kind of talk to her about, if he has to maybe accept that he can't control her. And so the birth control.
A conversation he has with Allison.
True.
Actually, that's where he's like, well, maybe I do have to accept what's going on because Allison says she's going to have sex. Like, you can't change that. It's just going to happen, right? So he makes the deal that she has to go on birth control. And that's the conclusion. Chinzana Uchi, who plays Nathan, who would have been Allison's
his fiance, yeah.
Yeah,
Morgan Freeman's son.
They were about to get married at the beginning before the accident. She was going to try on wedding dresses.
Correct.
So what did you think of him? Nathan.
That was really good because he balances out. She's like a big character, she's singing at the party and she's, boisterous. And he's, like she says, he's kind of shy and he is real supportive of her, even after the accident. When the police come into the room and she's there injured, she doesn't know yet what's actually happened. And I thought the way he was acting, I thought he was going to be like really mad at her. But in fact, he was just sort of trying to summon up, like defending her to some degree. Right. Yeah. And then he wanted to stay with her past the time. And then she left him because she couldn't cope or whatever. And the whole time he's just that sort of like nice, stable person. I liked him. I mean, he was just right to balance out the big characters, I thought.
The scene where they spoke at the end, I really liked. Where she had the clips in her hair and she said, "Do you like them? I stole them from her."
Yeah.
it's kind of a wrap up with them two. Like they want to be friends, but maybe
in
not.
the end, they have to because...
Oh, yeah, they have to in the end.
We come to a conclusion where it looks like they might have built their own kind of interesting family. He's with another woman at this point, and grandfather / Morgan Freeman wants her to be a part of the young girl's life. And so together, I think they're going to just patch things together as best they can.
Directed by Zack Braff. He directed Garden State. I really love that movie. But he's really famous for being in the comedy called Scrubs for many years. So what do you think of Zack's directing here?
Number one, I've not watched one single episode of Scrubs.
No? I think I've watched clips from it mainly.
And I feel like the directing it's like it's directly feeding from his own emotions. Like he's very human, if you know what I mean.
He's not flashy as a director.
There's no flash. It can be a bit pretentious at times. Don't get me wrong. Like the party in the beginning, everyone's like perfect and polished and it's real obnoxious how she's singing at the piano. And, it's just that kind of weird. We would think of it like a Christmas beer commercial or something where all the people at the party are like perfect. I find that a bit obnoxious. But then throughout, he kind of breaks people down. There's not just that. Everyone's very like a deep well of emotion. Yeah. And he also brings his playlist into this movie, like Garden State. Clearly, Zack is into a particular kind of music. And this movie is full of it, right? If you like Florence Pugh, she actually does a couple of songs in this movie. Mm-hmm. And she wrote and sang them. And they're on the soundtrack. I was just looking. There is a soundtrack to this. And her music is on there too. So IMDb reviews, what are those? Well, it's a website called imdb.com, Internet Movie Database. And people write reviews that they give them 1 star out of 5. And you think it's hilarious. All right, so these are the people who hate this film, and there's only 2. What? Yeah, there's just 2 who give it 1 star. So we'll read both. The first one says, the sole positive I can think, it looks pretty occasionally, and then it ends. Other than that, I want to know how Zack Braff keeps getting money to make smug waste of people. None of characters are likable, the framing and editing are weird, and the music is twee. The actors are ill-served, and it's 40 minutes too long. A 5-year-old could write a better story than Braff. His tacking of themes is done. This is 100% a vanity project, and it is embarrassing to see. So that's what that guy thought. He said it was a mystery for the ages. Smug is actually a good word. Maybe that's the word I'm thinking. Instead of pretentious, it's a little bit smug sometimes, and then the wrapping cotton wool around the idea of an addict just having to go through this really tough struggle and not always pointing at the other people's struggles. It's a bit smug, but from the way it's done. So that's not a bad word for some of this. And the other review that gave it 1 says, this is Hollywood trash, total waste of time. This movie is more and more common these days, and I don't know why this is 7 star. I mean, does the bar that's set low, movies like this one can bigger rating? Each and every actor is shameless. The lead female don't even bother writing her name because nobody has a clue. For some reason, she scratches her tummy while attempting to be an addict. She has no idea what she wants the viewers to know, and she has no passion. Morgan Freeman, he just took his cash like some old whip. The young girl must be living a rich life. That's why she brought her role in this movie. Waste of sea. That was an AI, possibly, or... Oh, is that where we're going these days with some of those? So those are the 1-star reviews of this movie. There are no extras on the Blu-ray, and I was disappointed because I wanted to see some Zack Braff stuff. But hey, let's give this movie a score. Are you ready? Yeah. I'm giving A Good Person 8 out of 10. Oh, I'm giving it 8.4. Nice. I know. What did the IMDb people in general say? Oh, 8. 8 in general for the general public. So we're just like all the general public. Just the same. Oh, no, I have to change my score then. All right, so thank you to Warner for letting us review that movie. Next week, we're going to look at the movie John Wick 4. You like John Wick? I do like John Wick movies. I like Jason Bourne. I like John Wick.
Well, John Wick's going to be
I like
shooting some people.
The transporter guy throwing the lady.
Yeah. I guarantee you that John Wick will shoot some people next week.
Maybe not. You don't know. It could be a twist.
Yeah, that's the twist. He doesn't ever use a gun.
It's non-violent.
All right, movie recommendations. I am going with Florence Pugh, Midsommar, amazing movie, and Morgan Freeman, Seven, amazing movie.
Seven.
Both kind of sick. Does that say something about me?
Is that your theme? Sickness?
Yeah.
Get down with the sickness. And my recommendations are from the 21st century, from the early 21st century, which would be starting in the year 2000, but I'm up to the year 2014, it looks like. And these are all science fiction, because I love science fiction. So these for this week, and this isn't a quality thing. It's not about that they're good. It's just that I've seen them and I'm going through the list. So there you go. Edge of Tomorrow, which you liked.
Thomas Cruise.
Correct.
Yes.
Ex Machina, which we both liked.
Awesome.
Godzilla 2014. I don't remember liking it.
I remember that it was too dark and you couldn't see what was going on.
And it was Walter White, correct? Yes. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. Interstellar 2014.
We know that you're not really a fan, but I like it.
I mean, it's fine. It's a science fiction. I love it.
Yeah.
It's just a little overrated in my, very non-humble opinion. I hate that phrase. In my humble opinion. It's not humble. Stop that shit. And then the final one is The Purge Anarchy 2014.
That was my least favorite of all the Purge movies. It was the one in the city.
With the guy in the gear.
Yeah.
In the van.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I don't know.
one.
I feel like it all goes together though. So I was fine.
It does all go together, yes. Yes. Hey, Scully stuff. I've been playing the Final Fantasy 16 demo. So at the end of the Square Enix press conference, they announced that you can go and get the demo for the upcoming game Final Fantasy 16. I sat down and played it on the PlayStation 5, and when it was over, I was like, I need to buy that game. It was really good. So that's a good use of a demo, isn't it? If you put out a demo, what's the idea of the demo?
What are the chances of you wanting to have that game anyway?
Well, I'm kind of hit and miss with Final Fantasy, to be fair. I have played them all. I don't always play them when they come out. I often wait for a long time and then end up playing them. I've played most of them.
So they baited the hook and you took it.
Yeah, well, the demo was very effective. And at the end of the demo, I was like, I just need to play this because I want to know what happens in this story. It's a really good story. Other games companies, if you've got a game that has a good story, this is a very good... Because the demo's 3 hours long. It's not just a very small snippet. It's the actual whole prologue of the game. And I think it is a very effective way of making it so you want to buy the game.
Isn't part of the strategy sometimes of a game that's not great is to not let you play?
I do believe that is the case. If there isn't any demo or any trailer or anything like that, it does make me suspicious sometimes. I'm like...
There's either not enough game in there for you to take part of it for free, or they just want you to buy it and then get on with it.
I feel they must have been very confident that with this one, that if you play the prologue, there's no way you're not going to want to play the rest of it. And I don't mind that giving you a demo because you can make your own decision then, right? You can go, okay, that's enough for me. I don't care. Or, wow, this is a really cool game. For me, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. And they've made a huge change, and it's very annoying to people who are into Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy games have traditionally been turn-based RPGs where you pick things from a menu and then the characters do the thing. Well, this one, they've taken that away completely, and it's an action game. So it's more like you're actually controlling the characters. You're not picking anything from a menu.
Is it more like the game you played where you're walking around and you're the dude in Japan? Shenmue.
Yes. Shenmue was action based. It wasn't turn based. It was like if you were to fight somebody in the street, you would actually have fighting moves and you fight them.
And it's kind of moody and...
Yeah. So that's what they've done with this new Final Fantasy. It's an action game. It's more like Kingdom Hearts than it is like Final Fantasy.
Okay, now I understand.
And that kind of annoys the hardcore RPG people because they're like, well, we want the turn-based thing. But they've gone, no, we're actually going full-on action. So you're controlling the guy. It's all in real time. It's fast combat. I like the fast combat, But then I have people who I know who love Final Fantasy who this ruins it for them.
I can see that. Yeah, because like you love racing games. So when they try to stick a big long story in there and a bunch of BS that isn't just racing and like building up your car, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It seems like it kind of drags it all down and you're not quite as interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they put their energy into part of a game that you're not interested in.
With driving games, like it's just about driving. Make that part good. I don't care about some lousy story.
Or also they took the crashing part out of Burnout. That's like the funnest part.
Yeah. That probably changed the Burnout franchise for a lot of people who were fans. And then they were like, no, I don't like it anymore because it's not got what I liked. Right. So I can understand why people would be against this. But the story is so good. You can't play this demo. The demo's free, by the way. If you've got a PS5, go and play it. The game's out next week. I recommend it. Sito, what's for dinner?
I don't know yet. I was thinking a rice bowl from someplace or making it. Because you made a rice bowl last night.
I did. It was
amazing.
Very good, I must admit.
We're vegetarian. That's why we're telling you what we eat. Because people are always like, so what do you eat? What can you eat? I can eat whatever I want. I could eat your foot if you let me. Because I don't care
you
about...
You can't eat my foot. I need it.
Someone might let me, right? I don't care about... We're not animal rights activists. We're not any kind of activists. I mean, when you really start looking into it, you're kind of like, you know what? I'm good without the dead animal, right? It's no big deal, but I don't care what anybody else eats. But then people are really snotty about it, like, oh, I could never do without my meat. I don't know how you do it. I'm just like, I just don't eat it. And
yeah.
Then when they say, what else can you eat? Well, like everything on the whole planet that isn't like the muscles or parts of an animal or that's edible. Everything else that's edible. So we like to take adventures and make interesting things. Last night's tofu rice bowl was delicious. It was like teriyaki, sriracha, right?
It was a tofu sriracha and with fried vegetables.
Yeah, and that sounds amazing. So we'll either have that or Subway. It depends. If between
I'm really in the mood for a sandwich.
Okay. Well, I love you.
And then tomorrow I will make something cool.
That's correct. He cooks most of the time now, which is awesome. So, okay, we'll have Subway then. It's been decided. And these good people are part of the decision.
Yeah.
You want my advice? Is that what you want?
I do want your advice, and then let's get out of it.
My advice it's not really advice. It's just a fun little way of putting some words together in a couple of sentences.
Right.
So, like, I was just thinking, I send my friends some thoughts for the day every day, and this was one of them. Because I observe in a lot of people how they like to pretend to be that humble thing we're talking about. And like, oh, I'm so unimportant. And, oh, my opinion doesn't really matter. And, oh, okay, I'll just go along to get along. You know what I mean? Like, you're nothing. I apologize if that hurts your feelings. But to me, that's what that is, right? Like, you think you don't count or that you don't matter.
Right.
Which isn't correct, by the way. I will defend you and say you do matter, but I'm not here to cheerlead you on. You just either know it or you don't, right? I was trying to think, how do you say that? I can't say all of that in my little thoughts for the day. So I'm like, how can I say that, in a pithy little way? So I came up with this, and you can either like it or not. I do not care. So you can be the star of your own play. Like, you're the star because it's your life, right? You're the star of your own play. Because without taking the time and effort to make your story, which is your everyday life and everything you do and all the things that matter that you do, if you don't make that the best it can be, how can you be in like other people's plays, essentially, as a supporting character? Like, if you're nothing in your own life, why would I want you to be something in my life? There's a better way of saying it. So here's the bottom line. Have some confidence in yourself. That's it.
Well done. Good. Well said. ascully.com. That's the place you can go to get this podcast. You can go to Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram for our social media. I'm ascully. She's Sid Talk. You can also go to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube. The podcast is pretty much everywhere you can get podcasts. Email feedback to me, ascully@ascully.com. Do not email Sid Talk. She doesn't want your emails. And finally, stay classy. Florence Pugh, 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 Pugh.
Sorry, Florence. That's very embarrassing. He's supposed to keep those things to himself, but you know how it is. And I'm going to say think for yourself, because if you're not doing it, 100% guarantee you someone's trying to do it for you.